Alright, so now we will be looking into Cloud Functions. So just a side note, if my voice or the sound seems a bit off, it's just that I kind of broke my mic stand and I'm using a mug, a cup, with a utensil to kind of support it. Desi jugaad. Anyway, now let's continue. So Cloud Functions, as per the official docs, it's a serverless framework, which doesn't mean that it doesn't involve any server. It's just that you're not the one who set it up. It's a service that Firebase, or to say Google, provides. Now that being said, these are functions which are deployed and executed on the cloud, which means that you can use them to run your backend, your server-side code. So these are triggered, these are executed based on different events. Now these events are connected with the different services that Firebase provide. Like for instance, if we take the Authentication, which is a service that Firebase provide. So in that case, you can execute a cloud function whenever a new user signs up. Like for instance, you can use that event to send them a welcome email. So that's one of the examples. There are many other use cases for which this service is used. For our case, we will be using the events which are related to the Firestore, because we want to execute the function whenever a user creates a new link, which means that whenever a new document is added for the link. Now that being said, let me just spin up the emulator using the same command, which was Firebase emulators. Okay. That's going to take a couple of seconds, and let's see. Alright, so that's done and we should be able to access it. So that's perfect. Now, so a while ago when we were setting up the Firebase project for our project, when we were initializing the Firebase for our application, we checked the functions and the emulators. So when we check the functions, we will be getting the functions directory in our project, and within this directory we are going to have the index.js. So this file is like, this is the entry point, this is the file from which we can create the cloud functions. Over here they provide an example. Let me just uncomment this thing and let's see what exactly it is. So we have to export the function with the function name. So in this case, this cloud function that we have, this thing, it's actually like it's with the name of hello world, this thing. So it uses the functions, the package which we already installed while setting up the Firebase, and it's using the HTTPS, which means that this function will be executed whenever any HTTP request is made to this endpoint. We will look into that in a minute. And it says that on request, which means that whenever the endpoint is requested, we can do whatever we want within this function. So if you're familiar with Node.js Express, then you should be able to kind of get this thing, the request and response. It's just, let me just comment this thing, and 1 second. So it is just returning back this text. So now if I save this file, the emulator will notice that something changed within this file, and is going to see that a function has been added, and is going to automatically deploy that function, as you can see. So that's perfect, and it provides the link using which we can access that function. So as it is a HTTPS function, like a function which will be executed on the HTTPS request, and if I kind of visit this link, you will see that it's returning back the same text which is being sent from this function. So that's great. Now for our case, what we intend to do is we want to add a listener. 1 second, let me just, I kind of need to sign up. What was the ID? Here, sign in, and I think I kind of wiped the entire database. I didn't. Okay, there we have the document, so that's great. Now what we need to do is, whenever the user creates a document within the respective path, we want to listen to that request, we want to listen to that event that a document has been made to that path, and we want to kind of do the thing which we already discussed. We want to get the short code, and we want to create a document with that ID, like using that as an ID. And the entire purpose is that the user should not be able to write to that the links collection which will be added on the root level over here. So the user won't be able to do that. We will be adding security rules which ensure that the user cannot directly write to that collection. However, the cloud functions, they don't pay any regards to security rules. They can do whatever they want. Security rules are not that strong to stop the cloud functions because they have kind of like the admin access. So that being said, let's do that. Let me just comment this thing. So we will be creating a function, and we can name, we have to export it using the exports, as it's a Node.js environment. And over here we can name the function as link created. So this function, we will be using the same functions package which is already imported. And on this one, this time we want to access the Firestore service. We want to kind of create this function which is related to Firestore. So we will be adding Firestore as such. Then using the document method, we need to specify the path. As you can see over here, it says that we have to specify the path, and this function is going to listen to that path. And when anything like any document is added to that path, the one that we specify, this function will be executed. So now for our case, let's specify the path. So within the links collection, the users collection, the main top level collection, we need to wrap the second level, which is the user ID, inside of curly braces, as this is something which will be dynamic. So let's do that, user UID. Then within this, we are going to have, like we do have the links sub collection, and then the respective link. So for that, let's add in the link. So next to it, let me just close this thing, and I think, okay, so next to it we need to specify the event. So if I enter dot, it's going to provide all the different events that we can listen. We can listen like whenever any document is created, whenever it is deleted, updated, or like the user directly adds that document. So the right one is more about like whenever any write event happens, which will include, I think, all the above three. So in our case, we only have to deal with the on create, like whenever a document is added to this path. And now this function will be called with the snapshot of that event. And the second one is the context. So let's just get the snapshot and the context. So using the snapshot, we can get the details about the document which was created, and we can actually get the data as well, the entire data of that document, which is pretty amazing if you think of it. So I will be just logging the snapshot dot data, which is a method on it, and we have to call it. So if we do this thing and if I save it, we will see that this function will be deployed, which is great. And one more thing, that in the emulator, if we take a look at the functions emulator, we're going to see the logs, which kind of gives all the details about like what's happening with the functions. So let's see. So it has been deployed, so that's great. Seems like it is paused. Anyway, so now let's just try with what we have done right now. So now if we create a link in the normal way, we can name it as youtube.com, something like this. So now when we created that event, this function will be automatically be executed. As you can see, well, we should be seeing this in the logs as well. Over here, there we have it, that is amazing. So as you can see, beginning of execution of that function that we created, because it listened to that path. It listened that a document was added to this path, and thus it called this function that we added over here, which is just logging the data of the document which was created, and the same thing is being logged over here. So that is great. So the other thing is it's saying warning, because like in cloud functions we kind of have to return back a promise. We kind of need to resolve that. So it's a good practice if we just return back promise.resolve in such a way. If we do that, well, anything like it won't do anything right now. The point is we have the document, so that is great. So out of this document we need to get the short code, one thing, and the other thing is the long URL plus the user UID. So the user UID is a part of the path. It's actually a param, and we can access the param by using the context. So within this context, this time let's log the context instead, and let me just create one more document, whatever we want. This time the function will be called, and we should be getting the context log. There we have it. As you can see, beginning and finished. Between it we have the context, within which we have the params, within which we have the user UID. That is great, which means we actually have everything that we need. We have the short code. I should kind of zoom in. We have the short code, we have the long URL, we have the user UID, we have everything that we need. So now let's head back over here, and I just remembered, like in the new document that we will be adding, let's just also include the link, because we may need it, because this is actually the document ID of the specific link which was added. So we may need it in order to update the total clicks. I'm not quite sure right now, so let's just add it. It's fine, let's do that. So now let's do it. From the context we just need these two, and we can destructure them in such a way. Context.params, which is an object. We need the user UID and the link. From the snapshot dot data, this method, we need, what do we need? We need the long URL and the short code. I think that's it. We need the long URL and the short code. All right, so that is great. So now that we have everything that we need to create the document in the path that we already discussed, the links collection within which we need to add in the respective document.